The day's over, you're driving home. You tune into your radio and you hear a little blurb about a little village in India where some villagers have died suddenly, strangely, of a flu that has never been seen before. But it's not really influenza, but 3 or 4 people are dead. And it's kind of interesting because they're sending some doctors over there to investigate it. You don't think much about it, but on Sabbath, coming home from church, you hear another radio spot. Only this time, they say it's not 3 villagers, but it's 30,000 villagers in the back hills of this particular area of India, and it's on TV that night. CNN runs a little blurb. People are heading there from the disease center in Atlanta, Georgia, because this disease strain has never been seen before. By Monday morning, when you get up, it's the lead story. For it's not just India, it's Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran. And before you know it, you're hearing this story everywhere. And they have coined it the mystery flu. The president has made some comment that he and everyone else are praying and hoping that all will go well over there. But everyone is wondering, how are we going to contain it? That's when the president of France makes an announcement that shocks Europe. He's closing their borders. No flights from India, Pakistan, or any of the countries where this thing has been seen. And that's why that night, as you're watching a little bit of CNN before you go to bed, your jaw hits your chest when a weeping woman is translated from a French news program into English. There's a man lying in a hospital in Paris dying of the mystery flu. It has come to Europe. Panic strikes. As best as they can tell, once you get it, you have it for a week before you know it. Then you have 4 days of unbelievable symptoms, and then you die. Britain closes its borders, but it's too late. Southampton, Liverpool, Yorkshire. It's Tuesday morning when the President of the United States makes the following announcement. He says, due to a national security risk, all flights to and from Europe and Asia have been canceled. If your loved ones are overseas, I'm sorry. They cannot come back until we have a cure for this thing. Within 4 days, our nation has been plunged into an unbelievable fear. People are talking about, what if it comes to this country? It's Wednesday night, and you're at a church prayer meeting when somebody runs in from the parking lot and yells, "Turn on a radio! Turn on a radio!" And while the church listens to a little radio, the announcement is made. 2 women are lying in a Long Island hospital dying from the mystery flu. Within hours, it seems, this thing has swept across our country. People are working around the clock trying to find an antidote, but nothing is working. California, Nevada, Arizona, Florida, Massachusetts, it's as though it's just sweeping in from the borders. And then all of a sudden, the news comes out. The code has been broken. A cure can be found. A vaccine can be made. But it's going to take the blood of someone who hasn't been infected. So, sure enough, all through the Midwest, through all those channels of emergency broadcasting, everyone is asked to do one simple thing, and that is go to your local hospital and have your blood type taken. That's all we ask of you. When you hear the sirens go off in your neighborhood, please make your way quickly, quietly, and safely to the hospitals. Sure enough, when you and your family get down there late on that Friday night, there is a long lineup. Oh boy, they've got nurses and doctors coming out and pricking fingers and taking blood and putting labels on it. Well, you and your wife and kids are out there and they take your blood type and they say, well, wait here in the parking lot, and if we call your name, you can be dismissed and go home. So you stand around scared with your neighbors, wondering what in the world is going on and if this is the end of the world. Suddenly, a young man comes running out of the hospital screaming. He's yelling a name and waving a clipboard. What? He yells it again. And your son tugs on your jacket and says, "Daddy, that's me." Before you know it, they've grabbed your little boy. Hey, wait a minute, hold on. And they say, it's okay, his blood is clean. His blood is pure. We want to make sure he doesn't have the disease. We think he's got the right type. Well, 5 tense minutes later, out comes the doctors and nurses crying and hugging one another. Some are even laughing because it's the first time you've seen anyone laugh in a week. An old doctor walks up to you and says, thank you, sir. Your son's blood type is perfect. It's clean. It's pure. And we can make the vaccine. As the word begins to spread all across that parking lot full of people, people are screaming and with delight and thanking God and laughing and crying for joy. But then the gray-haired old doctor pulls you and your wife aside and says, may we see you just for a moment, please? We didn't realize that a donor would be a minor, and we need for you to sign a consent form. You begin to sign, and then you see the space is empty where is placed the number of pints of blood to be taken. How many pints? You ask hoarsely. And that is when the old doctor's smile fades. We had no idea it would be a little child. We weren't prepared. We need it all. But I don't understand. He's my only son. We're talking about the world here, sir. Please sign. We need it all. But can't you give him a transfusion? He replied, if we had clean blood, we would. But please, will you sign? Sign. So in numb silence, you put your signature. Then they say, would you like a moment alone with your son before we begin? Friend, could you walk back? Could you walk back to that room where your boy sits on a table saying, Daddy, Mommy, what's going on? Could you take his hands and say, son, your mommy and I love you, and we would never ever let anything happen to you that didn't just have to be. Do you understand that? And when that old doctor comes back in and says, I'm sorry, we've got to get started. People are dying all over the world. Could you leave? Could you walk out while your son is saying, Dad, Mom, Dad, why have you forsaken me? And then next week, when they have the ceremony to honor your son, and some folks are asleep through the ceremony, and some folks don't even bother to come because they have better things to do, and some people with a pretentious smile and they pretend they just don't care. Would you want to jump up and say, excuse me, my son died for you. Don't you even care? Does it mean nothing to you? I wonder, is that what God the Father wants to say? My son died for you. Does it mean nothing? Don't you care how much I care? Friend, I invite you to visit adventmessage.com to watch more inspirational videos to see how much God cares about you.